guys, welcome back to another setup video on Assetto Corsa. Again we're driving on the console version of the game, and again we're driving at Monza to get another GT3 setup done for this track. This time we're going to be driving the Scg003 Gt3 race car around the track. And first of all, we're going to be looking for our braking zone for the first corner. Obviously this car carries a lot of speed, hitting about 176 miles per hour, braking in between the 200 and 150 yard board, a bit closer to the 150 I'd say, braking down into first gear then back into second gear before we come out the exit. That gives us a nice clean exit and we can accelerate then into the second chicane. Now we're going to be looking again, very similar braking point to the other cars, maybe just a fraction shorter. We're talking maybe 5-10 feet shorter than what you would with the other cars. And you're going to brake down just before the bridge, you'll see, pretty much on the bridge, just before it slightly, braking down into fourth gear, then third gear, then second gear as we approach the corner. Then using some of the curb, don't be too aggressive, but this car is actually quite nice on the curb, so you can be a little bit more aggressive on the curbs than the other cars. Braking down into third gear for the first part of the Lesmo, hard on the power, use some of the exit there into fourth gear, and then look for the 50 yard board as we brake down into third gear again, hard on the power, and use some of the exit curb again, going into fourth gear to give us a nice pull out of the corner, and heading our way into the third fast chicane, where we're going to look again like the other cars. We're going to look to brake just on the overhead bridge that goes over above our head. You can see now we're going to look there, braking down into fourth gear. This time we're going to stay in fourth gear with this car, use some of the curb, try and keep it nice and tight on the car into the curbs, and then use some of the curbs on both parts of the corner. The car can ride the curb really well. And then we're heading down into the final corner, where we're going to look again very similar to the other cars to brake in between the 100 and the 50, but maybe a little bit closer to the 100 than you would with the other cars. Braking down into fourth gear, then third gear as we approach the corner. Wait for that corner front end to grip up slightly before putting the maximum power down. You can see we're running very closely outside the track there, maybe losing a tenth or so, and we're over the line for a 1 minute 49.3. It's an acceptable lap. But this is a low downforce setup that we've gone for, and we're going to try and do a separate setup for this car at another point with a bit more downforce and see how it compares. Okay, so let's have a little look at the setup. As you can see, we went quite low with the brake bias onto 66. You can go lower than that if you want more front end turning. Depends how you want the car to be in the braking zone. I like 65 to 66%. I was messing around with it, very equal, but either 65 or 66% is the brake bias I would use. Then we're going to look into the aero. See, we've gone very low on the rear, no aero on the rear, and one on the front, just to give us a bit of turning for the front corner. You still need to run one really for the two Lesmos. And you can see we've gone lowest on power. The gearing is set up to 176, which is pretty much, we actually hit slightly more than that. So this car does actually rev over what the limiter tells you on there. That on the differential downshift 60, but we could probably run slightly lower than that with this car to try and aid a bit more grip through the corners and see if it helps out really. Going through into the suspension settings, another thing to note with regards to this car is you can actually run the power higher, but obviously you will need to adjust the traction control, but it's actually quite drivable. Even 20 with traction control on the weaker setting was actually really drivable, but I just found just a little bit easier to get on the power with it on 10. So looking at obviously the tyres set up for grip there on the front end, low on the back, and you can see the camber angle is very low. We've tried to basically get as much speed out of this car as we can. Very low on the cambers on the rear, not so low on the front because we wanted some grip, and again very low on the toe angles on both there. You can see pretty much going for the maximum straight line speed with this setup, reasonably high up on the ride height as well, and the springs are set up just to try and give us some turning basically. The rears actually, you can actually go slightly higher with the rears possibly than what it is there, but I just found that give a little bit more grip to the rear. Anti-roll bars very high on the front, obviously not maximum but quite high. This car's, that's the way this car is with the roll bars, you can go quite high obviously with the numbers. So I went up to 29 and 4 on the rear for the curbs. Seems to help out with the curbs really nicely. Regards to the dampers, made a few changes as you can take down there. Obviously up the travel range again. I do like to do that for the curbs, it seems to help me out personally. And we lowered the fast bumps down very slightly. Obviously this setup was done to try and get us top end speed, so I haven't compared it against a setup that maybe will run maximum front aero with maybe 2 on the rear. It'd be worth giving it a go and seeing how it compares. So what we'll do is maybe in a future setup video I'll do that and compare the two together, because it might aid in the braking of this car, because this car was suffering a bit on the braking, and I think that's where we lost out most of our time compared to the Porsche etc and the Lamborghini. But overall it's an easy car to drive with this setup. and it should serve you really well. Anyway guys, make sure you leave a like if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you click that subscription button, and also make sure you click the notification button so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Thanks again for watching.
Control.